Welcome to Speak English with Sparks Podcast, your fast track to better English.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the English Sparks Podcast. We're the place where we help you learn English in a fun and useful way so you can improve your skills fast. I'm Mia, and I'm so happy you're here with us today. And joining me is my fantastic co-host, Finn.
Hey, Mia. Hello to all our listeners. It's great to be back for another episode.
It really is, Finn. I'm excited about today's topic. It's something so many learners ask about.
I know what you mean. Okay, listeners, let me ask you a few questions to get us started. Do you often find yourself thinking in your own language first and then trying to translate it into English?
Or maybe you feel like English words just don't come out quickly when you want to say something.
Does it sometimes feel like your brain gets stuck, leading to that awkward hesitation?
If you answered yes to any of those, you're in the right place.
Absolutely. By the end of this episode, you'll know why this happens. You'll also learn useful tips to help you start thinking in English more naturally.
That sounds like a big help for many of our listeners. And before we jump in, a quick reminder for everyone. You can find a free PDF for this episode in the description area. It includes the full transcript of our conversation today, a list of new words and useful expressions, plus some super useful exercises to practice what you learn. So be sure to check that out.
And later on, our friend Catherine will join us to talk more about some key vocabulary from today.
Perfect. So, Finn, why is thinking directly in English so important for learners?
Well, Mia, if you're always translating in your head, it really slows you down. It's like your brain is doing double the work, first in your language, then in English.
That makes sense. And sometimes the way we say things in our own language doesn't translate well, right?
Exactly. You might end up saying something that sounds a bit strange or unnatural in English. My friend Sarah, when she was learning, used to directly translate a greeting from her language. It meant something like, "Is your body well?" In English, it was a bit confusing for people.
Oh, I can imagine. So thinking in English helps you sound more natural and speak more smoothly.
And it gives you a real confidence boost, too. When words come to you faster, you feel better about speaking.
That's a huge benefit. No more long pauses while you search for words.
Plus, it helps with listening. If you think in English, your brain can understand spoken English faster.
So you get more out of conversations, movies, everything.
What are some common things that stop people from thinking in English, Mia?
One big one is the fear of making mistakes. People worry so much about being perfect.
They might not even try to think in English because they're afraid of saying something wrong.
That's so true. But mistakes are how we learn, especially with languages.
It's like learning to ride a bicycle, Mia. You're gonna wobble and maybe even fall a few times before you can cruise down the street smoothly. Thinking in English is similar. Those little wobbles are part of the process to internalize the language.
That's a great way to put it, Finn. So true.
Another thing is focusing too much on grammar rules when you're trying to talk.
Yes, native speakers don't think about grammar rules for every sentence. They just speak.
Trying to be a grammar expert in your head while talking just slows you down.
And of course, if you don't use English much in your daily life, your brain will just stick to your own language.
That's a key point. So, how can we start to change this? How do we train our brains?
Let's start with something really simple. Try naming things around you in English. Just look around your room or office and say the words desk, computer, window, book.
It actually works, and you can take it a step further. Try making very simple sentences in your head, like, "I am sitting," or "This coffee is good."
Exactly, little steps. Another great thing is to talk to yourself in English. It might feel a bit strange at first, but it's so effective. When you're doing things around the house, like cooking or cleaning, describe what you're doing. I am washing the dishes. I need to buy milk.
My cousin Tom used to do this. He said he'd have full conversations with himself in English while driving. He said it helped him practice forming sentences without any pressure.
That's brilliant. No one is listening, so you don't have to worry about mistakes.
Here's another idea I find really helpful, Mia. It's what I call creating language islands.
Language islands? Tell us more, Finn. That sounds interesting.
It means you pick a small, specific time or a specific activity where you only use English. For example, maybe for 10 minutes while you drink your morning coffee, you only think in English. Or when you're doing a certain hobby, like gardening, you try to think about it in English.
Oh, I like that. It makes the idea of using English all the time feel less scary.
You're not trying to change everything at once, just creating small English-only moments.
Precisely. And those small moments add up over time, helping you reach that flow state more easily. Let's pause here for a moment, Finn. To our listeners, have you ever caught yourself translating in your head? Think about it for a second. It's a really common experience.
It absolutely is. Okay, Mia, another super useful tip is to use an English-to-English dictionary.
Many learners use a dictionary that translates English words into their native language.
But if you use one that explains English words in English, it keeps your brain in English mode.
So when you look up a new word, you're learning its meaning through English, not by translating it.
That makes a lot of sense. You're building connections within English itself.
We're about halfway through our discussion, and this seems like a good moment to remind everyone.
Yes, don't forget to check out the PDF for this episode in the description. It has the full transcript, vocabulary, and those helpful exercises we mentioned.
If you follow along and do the practice, you'll definitely see your English improve quickly.
So, we've talked about naming things, talking to yourself, language islands. What about getting more English into our daily lives, Mia? Immersion, as they call it.
That's a big one. Listen to English music. Try to find the lyrics and sing along. It's fun.
Watch movies or TV shows in English. You can start with ones you already know, so it's easier to follow.
And using English subtitles can be a great help at the beginning.
Don't forget podcasts like this one, and reading simple articles or books in English.
The more you hear and read English, the more your brain gets used to it.
What about daily habits, Mia? Things we can do every single day.
A great habit is to start and end your day with English thoughts. When you wake up, try to think about your plans for the day in English. Today is Tuesday. I have a meeting. I will call my friend. Simple things.
And before you go to sleep, you can think back on your day in English. What did I do? What was good? What did I learn?
It helps switch your brain into English mode at the start and end of the day.
Keeping a simple English journal is also a wonderful idea. Just write a few sentences each day about your thoughts, what happened, or your goals.
And don't worry about perfect grammar. The goal is to express yourself in English.
I think it's important to remember to be patient with yourself too. This takes time.
Absolutely. It's like learning any new skill. You won't be perfect overnight. Celebrate your small wins. Did you understand a full sentence in a song? Great. Did you use a new English word in your thoughts? That's progress.
My friend Emily, she used to get quite frustrated when she couldn't find the right word. It really affected her confidence for a while.
That's so common, Finn. What did she do to overcome that?
She started focusing on just trying to explain what she meant, even if she didn't know the exact word. Like, if she forgot the word umbrella, she'd say, the thing you use when it rains.
That's a fantastic strategy. It keeps the conversation going and keeps you thinking in English.
It really helped her. And listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a similar experience like Emily's? Or do you have your own special tricks for thinking in English?
Please share your stories and tips in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else.
That's a great idea, Mia. Learning from each other is so valuable.
So, the main message is to keep practicing, be patient, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Exactly. The more you practice these little things, the more natural thinking in English will become.
It really is a journey, but a rewarding one.
Well, Mia, I think we've covered a lot of ground with these tips.
We certainly have. And before we bring in our special guest, Finn, let's quickly summarize the key takeaways from our discussion for our listeners.
Great idea, Mia. So, first off, remember that thinking directly in English is a game changer. It boosts your fluency, your confidence, and even your listening skills.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid of making mistakes. They're part of the learning process, like Finn's bicycle analogy.
Focus on communication, not perfection. And try those simple daily practices. Name objects around you in English, talk to yourself in English. And my personal favorite, create those language islands for focused English thinking.
Yes, and immerse yourself. Use an English to English dictionary. Listen to music, watch shows, and read in English as much as you can.
Start and end your day with English thoughts, and maybe keep a simple English journal.
And most importantly, be patient and consistent. Small steps every day lead to big results.
You've got this, everyone.
Those are some excellent points to remember. And now, with those takeaways in mind, it's time to bring in our special guest. We're delighted to welcome Catherine, an English teacher from the UK, who will help us with some vocabulary. Catherine, welcome to the English Sparks podcast.
Hello, Mia. Hello, Finn. Thank you so much for having me. And hello to all your listeners. It's lovely to be here. Today, I'd like to talk about some of the useful words and expressions you used. Let's start with hesitation. This word means the act of pausing before doing or saying something. This often happens because you are uncertain or nervous. For example, there was a slight hesitation in her voice before she answered the difficult question. Next, you mentioned a confidence boost. This phrase means something that makes you feel more sure of yourself and your abilities. For example, passing the exam was a real confidence boost for him. Then we have the verb internalize. This means to accept or absorb an idea, opinion, or belief so that it becomes part of your character or the way you think. For example, it takes time to internalize new grammar rules and use them naturally. Finn, you talked about a flow state. This phrase describes a mental state where a person is fully immersed in an activity. They feel energized, focus, full involvement, and enjoyment. For example, when I'm painting, I often get into a flow state and lose track of time. And the term game changer. This noun means something like a new product or idea that completely changes the way a situation develops or how something is done. For example, the new software was a game changer for the company's productivity. Mia, you used the phrasal verb jump in. This means to interrupt a conversation or activity by saying something. It can also mean to start doing something eagerly. For example, feel free to jump in with your ideas at any point during the meeting. Another interesting expression is off the bat. This phrase means immediately or right from the start. For example, he understood the instructions off the bat and started working. In British English, we might more commonly say straight away for this idea. You also said you cover a lot of ground. This expression means to deal with a large amount of information or a wide range of topics. For example, in today's meeting, we managed to cover a lot of ground regarding the new project. Then there's stick with it. This phrasal verb means to continue doing something despite difficulties. For example, learning a new language is hard, but if you stick with it, you'll see results. And finally, that lovely, encouraging phrase, "You've got this." This expression is an informal way of encouraging someone. It means you can do it or I believe in you. For example, I know the presentation is a bit scary, but you've got this. Remember, learning English is all about picking up useful expressions and then using them. Try to use these new words and phrases in your own speaking and writing this week. The more you use them, the more comfortable you'll become. Back to you, Finn and Mia.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was incredibly clear and practical.
Yes, a big thank you to Catherine for those great explanations.
All right, listeners, we're nearing the end of our episode.
But before we go, we want to remind you one more time.
Please be sure to download the free PDF for this episode. It has the full transcript, all the new words and useful expressions Catherine talked about, and those super effective exercises. Take a little time to do them.
If you stick with it, even for just a couple of months, you'll really see a big difference in your English.
Absolutely. The key is consistent practice. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep speaking.
You will become more confident and your English will get better and better.
And remember, we're always here to help you on your learning journey.
If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe to our channel, the English Sparks Podcast.
And don't forget to click that like button. It really helps us reach more learners like you.
We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share your own experiences with thinking in English, or if you have any questions.
Or if there are any topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, let us know.
And please share this episode with your family or friends who might find it useful.
Thank you all so much for tuning in today.
Keep learning and keep sparking.